Hello. All right. Now comes the part of the stream where I'm trying to set. So last time we had a stream, there were apparently some issues with what the hell? There were apparently some issues with how the audio was. So I would like to understand. Ooh, I would like to understand if the audio is better. Can you guys hear me properly? Um, Last time apparently there was like a cracking sound, or something like that. It was stuttering, um, and I think um, it's not spiky like last time. Okay, very cool. I think that the issue was. Well, I mean, this is me speculating, but I think that the issue was that I was running on my big screen, which apparently, for some reason, um, messes up my computer. And yeah, so I'm trying to see now. Also, yeah, because I'm using the smaller screen, I don't know. I hope that the quality is good. It should be 1080p. The audio should be good. Can you let me know? Can you see the image well? Is it blurry, or um is it working well? Because I'm not sure what the situation is like. Crackle audio is top notch. Sounds good at the moment. Audio 5 out of 5. Okay, cool. What about the looking? Oh, it looks great. Good. Um, that's good to hear. So, okay, looks great. Looks a little blurry. You might have to. So my image is purposefully blurred in the background, but you might need to manually raise it to 1080p. I just ran a test and it seemed to work well when I raise it to 1080p. Let me double check something. Yes, on the test it seems good. Now I'm not sure if it's using my microphone correctly. Usually when I use this microphone, um, I can sort of hear myself. Oh, wait. Uh huh. All right. Yes. Is the microphone better? Well, or any different? Truly. Can you guys hear um, any difference? Because now I'm using like the good mic. Sounds good. Okay. All right. Let's give it a minute more because the stream is supposed to start at 6. Um, for those that have been here on the last streams, they tended to run a little bit longer than I wanted to. My ideal time for a stream should be about, I'm gonna say, an hour and a half. Half hour talking about the essentially what's coming out next month, and then another half hour talking about what's coming in the month after, and then another half hour of like Q and A. Let's see. Let's see if it works out that way. Also, if you are seeing my camera, since I'm using the smaller screen, which is at the bottom, I'm going to be looking down and not up like usual. So you're gonna see the top of my head, I suppose. All right, I'm going to do it this way. I'm gonna actually have like a stopwatch to try and get like um, a better feel of how we are running on time. Announcement has been made, happening now. All right. I still am not sure how I see how many people are on the stream. Um, hmm, where can I see it? Chat. Okay. All right, apparently we got 25, 28. Okay, numbers are going up. People are joining the stream, so we can get into it. All right. Okay, so like I said before, the stream is in 3 parts. We're gonna take first. We're gonna take a look at everything that's coming out in in October. Then we're going to take a look at what's coming in November, and then there's the Q&A. So starting with October, let me start this timer and see how it goes. So starting with October, we have 3 factions, as we are currently doing. As a reminder to everyone, um, it's not normal that we do 3 factions per month. This is an exception. Um, it's going to keep going like this until December, when we essentially finish with the Star Host releases, and then we're going back to the regular 2 armies per month releases. I mentioned this in the latest post, like the latest roadmap. Doing 3 armies is one at once. It's cool. It's very cool to release so many miniatures, and it's fun, but it's very 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 stressful for us. So yeah, we're we're going back to 2 armies per month. Yeah, and in any case, like, you're still gonna get a ton of content, tons of miniatures. The rule books, the missions, and we're also working on a bunch of new stuff that is going to be released monthly via the Patreon. But yeah, we're not there yet. Okay, so let's take a quick look at the October release. So let's start with Lust Demons. So for Lust Demons, they're still kind of in the works. As you guys know, unfortunately, because we're doing so many miniatures at once, we're running into some delays. So we're going to look at the concept art for the October Lust Demons models instead of renders, but they still look great. So we start off with the base unit, which is the Warriors. So yeah, you can see here the Warriors. Well, the Last Demons, we were kind of inspired by a mix of sirens, demons, of course, and then we had this idea for this like snake theme. Um, so yeah, you can see like the theme everywhere. They have these beautiful long tails. Everything is highly ornamented. They have a lot of jewelry. They have like armbands. I think that's what you call them. Armbands, beautiful necklaces. They have this detail on the neck where they have all these rings like stacked on the neck, which we thought looked very cool. Here you can see the sergeant. Oh yeah, they have multiple hairstyles, so all the models come with multiple hairstyles. We also have multiple expressions. The models will come. Some of them come with like a more calm expression. Some come with like an angry expression. Yeah, a lot of work went into like expressions and hairstyles and making sure that everything worked well. Here you can see the faction symbol. It comes in different versions, but overall it's always like the same shape and theme. We have some cool details for them. We have like mirrors and perfumes. Um, we wanted to have things that are very feminine, but we still wanted them to be very strong. So yeah, that's you can see it all in the shapes and the beautiful corsets that they wear and all the ornamentation and the hairstyles. Like the closed hairstyle is um, yeah, it's very powerful when you see it. And honestly, I can't wait to see you guys like paint them up. Here you can see the weapons, all very snake themed. And here you can see some of the poses. Oh yeah, their instrument is like a snake horn, snake tuba. So yeah, they're cool. It's gonna be lots of models. I think. So they have 5 weapon options. Then you have the command group. It's 28 models just for the warriors. Now, aside from the warriors, you're going to get a bunch of other stuff. So you're going to get the champion. And so the idea with the Lust Demons is that basically, like, as they evolve, so to say, they get bigger. They get these big additional arms. They get more tails. And they just basically evolve. Like all their clothing becomes more ornate and more complex. You can see here she carries like a snake pet around her neck. Here's a bunch of weapons. Yeah, that's the champion. Very cool as well. Then we have well, essentially it's gonna be the warriors and then like a bunch of heroes. So you're going to have the champion on a beast. The beast again. It's meant to be snake inspired, so you can see like that it has the fangs and it kind of has like a snake shaped face. And still like those huge arms that they have. And it's actually interesting because like we had a problem that we had to solve with the Beast Riders, which is like when you have these warriors that are like snake people. And it's like how do you put them on a how do you actually make them ride a beast? And so here's the solution: they basically wrap around the beast, and the saddle actually has two parts to actually make sure that their tail is nice and comfy there in the back. So that's the champion on beast. Then you're going to have the lust harpist. Um, so the harpist, yeah, we actually have to make like a 3D model just for the concepting to understand like how it's going to function. And basically, it's a version of the champion with with a harp, and you can see again like snake themed and ornamented. She has like a different set of armor, um, different supports, different earrings. Yeah, very cool. Um, Very cool. And there's always like the little extra details, the mirror, the perfume. She also has ornaments on like her huge arms, which is also pretty cool. Then we have the mirror. The mirror is actually like a little bit of like a bigger model. And the mirror, yeah, this is very cool. I wasn't sure how this was going to turn out, but it turned out awesome. Well, at least in my opinion. So you basically have like this sort of sled, um, which has the big mirror, which actually has like a wavy reflection of the symbol. It has like head ornaments and stuff like that in the back. It has beautiful like drapings with a bunch of like jewelry attached. And then you have two warriors hanging off the side, and the way that this thing actually like slithers, moves through the battlefield is that it slithers with these huge snakes. Again, going into the theme of the snake. Um, yeah, they look quite cute. They look like they're smiling. Yeah, this is kind of like the idea. So, yeah, big mirror slithering through the battlefield. Yeah, we're actually just doing the 3D model this week. Looks pretty cool. It's gonna be cool. And then for the less demons, okay, the last thing we're gonna have is the harbinger. The harbinger essentially is like an even bigger champion. Um, and so it follows that theme that I was saying, like the arms, they have like these extra big arms, and then it has even more tails. The tail, well, it doesn't have more tails, like the tail splits into more sections. um, cool that that has like ornaments on the end of the tail. Different armor, different sort of like head. It has a different shape on the back of the head. It creates like these sort of like layers, and again, lots of ornaments, and again, cute little smiley snakes. And everything has to have a smile. Yeah, here you can see the hairless version. It's kind of weird, honestly. Um, and then yeah, it comes with a winged option, of course. The harbingers always also have the wings, and then lots of weapons. Following the same themes, like the scaliness, the snakes. They have this sort of like hook shape that they use all over the place. You can see it in the sword, you can see it in the gauntlets. And actually, yeah, like we had this thing where every demon faction, their heroes have some sort of like ranged weapon. And before we were making them very generic. I think for the last demons, it was like a limb strike, something like that. And then we thought, okay, let's actually do something cool here and thematic. And so we went for these kind of like wrist mounted crossbows um, that they get to shoot at the enemy. Um, yeah, cool. That's the Lust Demons. Lots of stuff. Lots of stuff. Well, lots of warriors and then lots of like heroes. So yeah, I think they're gonna be cool. Yeah, I think they're gonna be very cool. Okay, cool. So that's Lust. Now let's take a look at. Let's take a look at. Well, sure. Let's take a look at Plague. Okay, for Plague. What do we have this month for Plague? So this is the second wave of Plague. It's a little bit smaller, of course, because it doesn't have the warriors, but it has big stuff. So what do we got? We got all right. We got the Furies. The Furies, very cool, as always. Following the theme of the Furies, all being um, kind of like related, but different and adapted to each faction. They have their wings, they have like the claws option, and then they have these sort of like sword. We're calling them arm blades. These arm blade options. Right now in the rules, there's actually no difference between the claws and the arm blades. Um, but I'm thinking that actually, like, since we're doing this on the models, we might add rules for them, because I think it would be pretty cool. And yeah, they always have this option for like the mask. They have like this cool wooden mask that they wear. Um, and then what do we have? Then we have okay, I'm gonna show you this last. Okay, then we have the Harbinger. The Harbinger of Plague. Again, Harbingers always have wings. Very cool. They have like these sort of like very I don't remember the name in English. Whatever. These very like insect kind of inspired wings, but then with also the theme of like the foresty, swampy vibe, and the plague, of course, and the mushrooms. This guy comes again with lots of weapon options. It has a sword, it has a spear, it has a gauntlet, it has a sort of like sling, it has a hammer, lots of cool stuff. And you can see that like he has like his cool faction symbol and stuff hanging from his belt. Um, yeah, very cool. This guy's pretty big. It's like 70 millimeters, so it's chunky. It's a chunky model. Um, and then you go a step up from the Harbinger and go into the Ascended Harbinger. Now, for the Ascended Harbinger, I don't have renders yet, but I have pictures of the actual model as it's work in progress. And this guy's like even bigger. He's 100 millimeters, so he's like giant size. Um, and you can see, as always, like following the theme, right? Like all the mushrooms and the bones and um, all of the plaguey stuff. Then we have the faction symbol, of course, on top of the head. This is work in progress, of course, so nothing here is final. Actually, like, yeah, he has this cool like bag on his waist, where like he puts like a bunch of like skulls and stuff, and mushrooms and yeah, we're thinking of probably giving you also the option without it, because I can imagine some people are not going to be big fans of it anyway. But still to be seen. Oh yeah, and he has like this huge, he has this huge skull on his arm. Let me see. I think I have another picture that I can show you. Um, yeah, here you can see. Yeah, he has this huge skull of probably some sort of giant that he slayed. Again, filled with mushrooms, following the theme. The wood, making sure that there is nothing here that feels too like man-made. Yeah, you can see here by like the proportions of these things that he is huge. He's a big beast. Um, Yep. Oh, and you can see actually like his spine kind of like protrudes from his back. That's a theme with the bigger um, plague monsters. And talking of big plague monsters, okay, we have the soul demon of plague. By the way, I feel like maybe I'm rushing now. I'm gonna have to find a right timing for this, because I'm supposed to have like 10 minutes per faction, but now I'm like speeding through it. Um, all right, so I'm gonna try to be a bit more relaxed about this. All right. Um, all right, the soul demon of plague. So he is huge. Yeah, you can see a little warrior. He is very big. I think total height is around 130 millimeters. Don't quote me on that, but it's around that. Beautiful model, lots of detail. And as always, like with the plague stuff, it has, all their models have so much detail, but you can just, you know, uh, spray them, give it a wash, do some highlights, and honestly, they're done. So organic, it's very cool. Um, Also has this thing of like the spine kind of like bursting out and being exposed. Yeah, he's very cool. Faction symbol hanging. Um, yeah, and he comes with a bunch of weapon options. Well, like all soul demons, I suppose. I can show you here. Maybe in this picture you can also see another one. No. Well, basically he comes with. All right, let me think. He comes with a gauntlet. He comes with a sword. He comes with two types of cannon. Um, well, we have some time. Let me see if I can bring up the other pictures, so you guys can take a closer look at this bad boy. Soul Demon. Okay, cool. So, all right, he comes with all right. This option that you already saw, like the cool gauntlet that he has. It's kind of like layered as well around his fingers. Very cool. And this big cannon, which is like the heavy cannon, and then he has the sword. Well, from this angle, you cannot see it that well. I think there's a better picture. But yeah, he has like a sort of sword and a second cannon. This would be like the, let's say, the light cannon. Um, Also very cool. And then, okay, here you can see. Oh yeah, you also have a version with just fists, because if you want to brawl, I suppose. You have the option with gauntlets, and then you have the option with swords. Yeah, here you can see the sword a little bit better. And everything, well, except for the cannons, which are only on the right side, everything is left and right. So you can do whatever combo you want. You could have, sword on the right, gauntlet on the left, cannon on the right, and empty hand on the left. Whatever you want, we always try to provide options as far as we can. We actually have, yeah, here we have a shot from the back, and you can see, again, filled with detail. The spine, the exposed spine with mushrooms on top. Yeah, very, very cool. And the layered mushrooms here. Um, yeah, I gotta say, very cool model. Okay, and so these are the basic plague demons, but let's go to the ones that everybody wants to see, and I understand why, which is this plague swarms, because they're fucking adorable. All right, so the plague swarms. They were um, let's say they took up some time to make, because it's essentially 18 poses, three bases, 18 poses. Um, each pose comes with like different weapons and stuff. And yeah, you have, and then they're kind of like assembled in three bases. They will come essentially with a version of them that is like on a little mound for people that want to print it like as a single piece and just not have to worry about it. But you're also going to get each individual pose as a separate file. And that way you can make your own compositions. You can put them somewhere else. You can do whatever you want. Yeah, so you have this sort of like, this is the banner composition. Um, yeah, they're all kind of crazy. You have a guy holding a banner, a guy charging with his big mace. The guys with the spears. Very cool. Then you have this version, which is the version with the horn. Yeah, it's actually one guy. Yeah, here you can kind of see it. It's one guy on top of another, and he's blowing the horn. You have a guy with a sling. Yeah, they're cool. They're kind of like jumping around. Um, yeah, I didn't know what to expect with the little guys, but they turned out awesome. And then finally we have this version with the guy with the shield. So there's like a guy in the front charging with the shield. There's another guy with a sling. He kind of looks like a leader in some ways. You actually have another guy with a banner here. I think this might have been changed for the final, and this guy's holding another weapon and not a banner. But don't quote me on that. So yeah, plague swarms. They're cute. They're funny. They're everything you want from a miniature. So really happy how they turned out. And yeah, if you want, I guess you can upscale them and maybe use them even as warriors, because you get loads of them. So yeah. Okay. With this, we have gone through the plague demons. Um, so let's head into the Saurian Star Host. So the Star Host. All right. Well, these are kind of. There's not that many coming this month, but still, let me show them off to you. So the Star Host. Essentially, this month, what you get is you're going to get the veteran Raptor Rider. He actually comes with lots of weapon options. Yeah, maybe I can, since we have a little bit of time, I can actually show you the weapon options. So he comes with all right. So the basic version that you're seeing here, so with his spear and the pistol. Then he comes with a club, and a spike pistol, and then he also comes with a claw. And as always, it's modular, right? So if you want to have the spike pistol with the with the spear instead of like the regular pistol with the spear, I think it's called a twin pistol. Again, don't quote me on that. Um, yeah, you can do it however you want. Yeah, I think again, I'm very happy with how this all turned out. It looks great. Um, then we have the two lizards with all of their handlers. So we have the dragon lizard. Well, okay, yeah. Let's start with the dragon lizard. We have the dragon lizard with the handlers, of course. So let's talk about the lizards first. So the lizard, the idea of the dragon lizard is kind of that he's sort of solar powered, um, and so he has like all of these solar panels around his head, and also on his spine. We actually tried a version where instead of having like a regular spine, his spine was made of solar panels, but it really didn't work out. But yeah, he looks really cool. He has lots of details and like a lot of one of the cool things is about the armor of the Starho is that a lot of pieces are meant to represent like skulls and stuff like that. So you can see, well, here you can kind of clearly see that some sort of head, but they actually have like a strap on the side which kind of resembles a skull as well, which is pretty cool. So yeah, this guy is a flame breathing badass. And then let me see. Maybe I have extra pictures of him. I do not. And then we have the spiked lizard. And so the spiked lizard, we thought. I guess the thought was kind of like, well, in the fantasy version, he has these spikes, and then he kind of like shoots spikes with his tail, and then we thought, well, what if like in the sci-fi version, um, instead of spikes, they were actually rockets, and so we actually did that, and so yeah, you can see that he has like a bunch of like rockets, not strapped but like injected in his back. I don't know, they're mounted on his back, and then he can essentially just like barrage the enemy. I think here I can actually show you some close-ups. Oh yeah, I have a side view that maybe allows you to see it better. Yeah, he has like all of the rockets, and actually, like here in the back, he also has like a bunch of stashed um, ammo for the rockets, so he can keep on firing. Yeah, I kind of imagine it's like, since they have like the handlers, that the handler goes there and like picks up the rocket and like, puts it back in, and then he barrages again. Now the real question is what happened to his actual spikes. I suppose they cut them, which does not sound very nice, but who am I to judge? And then we have the actual handler. So yeah, so with the fantasy version, we only had, I think, 3 handlers. Here we thought, well, what if we give them like some weapon options, and we make something cool with them. So okay, we have a couple of regular handlers which have like the spears. Um, yeah, they have these cool like sort of prodding spears, which they kind of use to prod the lizards in in the direction of the enemy, and I suppose also to defend themselves. We have a more prodding or maybe stabbing motion version as well. We have a guy that looks like he's just prepped for partying. Um, yeah, actually, this came out really cool as well. Like the details. I could imagine that you could draw, like you could paint this, like with a glow, and get a nice object source lighting effect right here. And then we have a sort of like kind of like leader pose. He's like pointing like that way, or maybe he's like directing a barrage from the spiked lizard. Um, and still lots of cool details on them as well. Then we have and then we have the ones with like some other weapons as well. So we have one with a pistol, which I actually think came out really cool. Like you could probably just use this guy as a hero. Yeah, I think this would do like just great as a hero model. Paint him up in gold and make him a little special. Maybe add some bits to him. Yeah. And then we have a version with a shield, which also looks like, could be some sort of like hero or guard, or something like that. He has like his hex shield. Um, yeah, very cool, very cool. Again, very happy with how they turned out. All right, let's not faff about. Let's go to what? Let's go to the real. Let's go to the real. All right. So every month, as you know, we release a massive legendary model, and so the way it works the way it works for the armies, well, in this case also for the demons, but for the armies in general, is like we want to make sure that every army gets at least one legendary and at least one loyalty reward. And with the demons, we kind of had the question like, well, what do we do as a legendary? What do we do as a loyalty reward? How do we make this work? And so, the idea is that the regular avatars are going to be released as loyalty rewards, which loyalty rewards are usually thought more of like as gaming pieces, and then we're going to make epic versions of them to be released as legendaries. So, without further ado, the first legendary that we're going to be releasing is the epic avatar of war, and yeah, I mean it's amazing. So he comes basically with like a special sword, a special whip. All of his armor is different. He has a different head from the regular avatar. And he comes also like in this cool pose with a base. We have a couple more views here that you can see. Yeah, he's sort of like charging forward. This, by the way, is not the final version, so there's still stuff that is being tweaked. But yeah, you can see he's kind of like charging forward with his sword, and his whip. He has this big wings. Everything is like moving. Um, yeah, very cool. We can see. Yeah, here you see like the side view, which was actually kind of like the intended way to see him. Like if you put him on display. Um, Massive sword, really cool. Skulls, of course, skulls everywhere. Yeah, you can see the back. There's always lots of details. The tail with all the rags and stuff like that. Yeah, very cool. And then, oh, we have more views. Okay, from the other side, you can see him as well. Yeah, and everything. It's so the thing about the avatars is like the base body, so to say, is the same, but all the details and the heads are new. And these were specifically thought in pose to make sure that they come out um, as awesome as they can be. Oh, and then finally, we also have like a detail of the base, so you can see. Um, yeah, it's some sort of like bridge that's broken down, and there's some pillars and a bunch of skeletons hanging, and all the good stuff you would expect from one of these um, legendary models. Okay, nice. All right, let me see. Okay, time. All right, about 30 minutes. About 30 minutes. That's good. So we're on time. We're on time. So, yeah, this was the preview of the Sep- October release. Um, Now let's go into the good stuff. So we are going to take a look at what is coming out in November, which is very exciting because we have lots of stuff. Okay. All right, we're gonna start with the Lust Demons again. So Lust Demons, you're going to get you're going to get the rest of the army, which we hadn't released so far. I have 5 concepts to show you. So this is, of course, as always, early stage. Everything's everything is still in the works. Everything could change. Blah blah blah. Usual disclaimer. But let's start. So, um, Lust Furies. So the Furies, are always kind of following the same theme. They're meant to be all related, like I was saying before. For the Lust Furies, we were actually not sure um, if we should follow the theme of the regular Furies and give them legs, or if we should follow the theme of the faction and give them tails instead of legs. We gave it a shot, didn't really work, so we're actually going back to legs. So in a sense, they're a little bit unusual from the like regular lust demons. But yeah, very cool. As always, very ornamented. The scales, the necklaces, the stuff you can expect. Some suggested poses. Very cool, kind of like um, on their tails. This is a cool pose. This reminds me of was this cartoon in the '90s called Gargoyles? Kind of reminds me of that. Um, but yeah, very cool. All right, that's the Furies. Then let's take a look at. Okay, let's go from small to big, I suppose. Let's take a look then at the Lust Beast Rider. So I already showed you the Lust Champion on Beast, but here you can take a closer look at the actual beast and how it works. So as you can see, it has a snake-like head. Yeah, again, it was very interesting with the Lust Demons because we weren't really sure at the beginning when we started the concept phase for the Lust Demons. We didn't really have this theme of the snakes in mind. And so we were kind of working on the factions, but everything kind of felt nothing felt connected. There wasn't a coherent theme that was kind of making the whole faction work. And then once we kind of found this snake theme, which I think started maybe with the beasts, it kind of like really really resonated with us, and we were able to apply it everywhere. And so yeah, so the lust beasts are supposed to be these sort of like big doggos with like snake heads. And then as you can see, yeah, they have a cozy saddle for the actual warrior, and then they actually have like a second saddle for the tail, because yes, like the last demons have tails. Yeah, and here you can see how they're wrapped around it. Here's a couple of suggested poses: a charging pose, a more wild combat pose, and then of course, the beast riders always also come with a command group, so you're gonna have the battle standard. Yep, following the snake theme, as you can imagine. Then we have a musician with a nice horn, and then we have the sergeant. Yeah, we have the sergeant, which looks pretty cool. And yeah, actually, the sergeant gets like a little bonus, but because she gets like a sort of gauntlet that I don't think anybody else in the army has. So, good on her. Then we have. Okay, then we have yeah. So like I said at the beginning, we had no real theme. Then we found this snake theme, and then the way we developed it first was we kind of had this evolution. We said because okay, we had no theme, and one of the things we struggled with was the beasts, and then we struggled with the idea of the soul demon, and then we struggled with the idea of the fiends, and we were kind of like, well, how do we make something that feels truly unique to us? And so once we had the snake theme, we said, okay, well, what if it's kind of like an evolution, right? You have the lust beasts, they evolve into the fiends, and then the fiends evolve into the soul demon. So you've seen the beasts, now we go for the fiend. So the fiend, the fiend, yes, is an evolved version of the beast. Again, following the snake theme, of course. They're much bigger, and they also have this thing of the evolution, like the warriors that become the champion that gets the extra buff arms. So the arms of the fiend become extra buff, and it has a snake head, lots of tails, as always. Higher evolution means more tails. Yeah, very cool, honestly. And then yeah, so this is like the base body, and then of course ornaments, because the lust demons are all ornamented, and the theme. I know that some people, coming maybe from Games Workshop and stuff like that, they always think like, well, lust demons, it has to be about like sex and whatever. But for us, really, the theme is not that. For lust, the lust is like a lusting for power. They lust for conquering, and they lust for all these things. And part of the way that they show off, their let's say dominance is being very ornate and jewels, and being better than the others, being richer, so to say, through all their conquests. And so the fiend also gets lots of ornaments all around its body. Yep, and then we have some, a couple of poses. So just a regular walking pose. We have a sort of like looking around pose. We have sort of like strutting pose. Yeah, maybe we'll have some sort of more comedy pose as well. We'll have to see. And then what do we got? So yeah, so we have the rider, right, evolves into the fiend, and then the fiend evolves into the soul demon. So you saw that the fiend got like buffer arms. Well, we thought, okay, if the rider is like a monkey on that goes on all fours, and then the fiend kind of like starts going like a gorilla, right? It has like the big buff arms and it stands. Then the next step, of course, is that the model actually stands. And so here we have the soul demon. So the soul demon is, it actually stands on two legs. It has a snake head following the theme, lots of ornaments, and again, like snakes all over the place and jewels and stuff like that. And then it has its special weapons. It has like this sort of sword. Like I said, these are early concepts. It has a big sword. It has like the various types of cannons. We're still working on it, but yeah, as you can imagine, this is going to be pretty cool. And it's going to be huge. This one is like 130 millimeters tall, so it's like a big centerpiece for your army. Okay, let's take a look at the last concept for the Lust Demons for November, which is the Chariot. All right, there we go. So, yeah, with the Chariot, we sort of had this idea of, well, I guess it kind of follows the same idea of the mirror, right? It's a sort of sled, just that the mirror was dragged by snakes, which is also a little bit slower, I suppose. And but the chariot is actually dragged by the beasts. So beasts, dragging this sort of chariot. Um, yep, it has kind of like all these funky like hole design, as always, like scales and snakes and all that stuff. You can see here like the alternative version of the saddle. Well, it's not a saddle at this point for the beast, because like it's made so that they can drag the actual chariot. And then yeah, it's gonna have two warriors in it. Oh yeah, and if you notice, like here in the back, it has a sort of like spike, um, a spike design, and this is not just a random spike. Actually, the spike is there because it's so that the warriors can hold on, and they're kind of like wrap their tails around it. Yeah, this solution of wrapping the tails around things that go really fast is very cool, and I could imagine if we were to make new units for them in the future, that we would probably stick to this design as well. And then we had this thing where like we thought, well, the chair was cool, but the name of the unit in the game is it's a razor flail chariot, and we kind of didn't really have that design in the actual model, and we thought, well, we could add, um, I don't know, that we weren't really sure what we could add to make it more razor flaily, and then we said, well, what about like the actual name, like razor flail, and so we made a flail that's kind of like razored. um and yeah, and the idea that they're like wildly swinging these flails about and causing absolute destruction. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's more to say. Model's gonna be cool, that's for sure. Yeah. Okay, cool. With this, we have gone through all of the November models for the Lust Demons. Now we can take a look at the Star Host. Okay, so for the Star Host, all right, the Star Host, we are going to start, okay, with the Chief. So, yeah, for the Star Host, we have the regular warriors, right? The Saurians, and they have their veteran, which you've already seen. But we need a hero also for the for the geckos that is not just a wizard, well, psychic in this case. And so here is the hero version of the geckos. He has like a cool big headgear with these sort of like weird cables in the back. He has a cool version of the shield. He has like a sort of like mace, sword, club thing that he uses, and then he comes with multiple weapons. He comes with a pistol option. He also comes with a sniper option if you want to make him extra shooty. Yeah, I have already seen the 3D model. It looks cool. That's what I can say. Um, then we have the pterodactyls and the ripjaw dactyls. So, oh, we don't have all the options. Well, whatever. So these are actually kind of similar in theme to to the um, the ones from the fantasy version. You basically have like the pterodactyl, and then you have the ripjaw dactyl. Like, of course, here they're armored and they have all their fancy sci-fi gear. But they also have the option basically to carry bombs, so they can drop bombs on the enemies. And yeah, you cannot. Unfortunately, I don't have it here, but basically, they come with multiple weapons. They have this sort of like here, maybe it looks very simplified, but it's a sort of sniper rifle type of thing, a hook rifle kind of weapon um, that they carry around. And then they also come with pistols, they come with shields, and they come with daggers, which actually sounds kind of cool. Like they're jumping out off of like a pterodactyl to like stab someone with a dagger. Sounds pretty badass. Um, yeah. And then what else do they get? They get the chameleon. The chameleon. So here we thought, well, the chameleon in fantasy, what makes them really cool is that they're sort of like this stealth unit where, they have the mimetized skin as a chameleon does. But here in the sci-fi version, it was like, well, we're gonna put armor on them. So how do we make sure that whilst they have armor, they kind of feel, like this sort of like mimetized unit? And we thought, well, what if they were sort of these spec ops type of guys? So they kind of have like this suit which looks like a sort of, I don't know, like almost like a sort of wetsuit. I would love to show you the 3D model, so you can get an idea of what it actually looks like. But yeah, it has this sort of like wetsuit style suit, which gives it a really spec ops feel. The final armor design is actually a little bit changed for practical purposes. It's very hard to make a tail that's fully armored like this and that you can still like properly pose. Um, but yeah, the geckos look cool, and then yeah, they come with like a special sort of like carabine. I think the final version does not have the dagger, and it actually has a sort of like like a side magazine. We were inspired by like World War II weapons, like a Sten gun. I don't know if you know it, or an FG-42, I think it's called. Which yeah, we're for like paratroopers, so I thought like it's kind of like it feels spec opsy. And then, well, what is a unit of chameleons without a hero? So we made the chameleon chief. Yeah, so the chameleon chief is bigger, badder version of the regular chameleons. Lots of extra details. Cool melee weapon. A cool sort of sniper rifle. Yeah, option for sort of like additional um, cloth. What do you call it? Cape. Um, yeah. And I think yeah, I think this one's gonna turn out pretty cool as well. It's gonna be interesting. We still haven't started working on this one. And sometimes we have to like kind of modify our designs. But this one looks pretty good. I don't know that it's gonna get a lot of modifications. But yeah, very cool stuff. Okay, with that, we have looked at the star host. So, all right, let's take a look at what everybody's here for, which is the Ratman. So, all right, the Ratman. I see that we actually have a lot of time left. I'm about 5 minutes ahead of schedule, so that's good. So let me give you a little tale of the Ratman. So basically, the Ratman, um, the Ratman started with this idea that we were going to make fantasy Ratmen that are not evil. I think it's you see everywhere that ratmen are treated as evil, and we thought, well, why? It's kind of unfair that just because they're rodents, they're kind of like shoved off into being like sewer beings and whatever. And so when making the lore, at the time I thought, well, I don't like that idea at all, and I wanted to really reflect this kind of like human logic of like, well, rat, sewer, bad, evil, disgusting. And so even in the lore, the whole thing of the ratman is like they kind of like they were accidentally spawned from, let's say, magic waste in human cities, and then once they kind of became ratmen, these beings, they were seen as vermin, and so they were kind of like shoved off. And so they left the empire essentially, and then they kind of went to different factions, and every faction just saw them as vermin and like shoved them off. And they basically found a spot where there was nobody, because it was like a no man's land between multiple factions. And they essentially, like, through their fast, their ability to multiply so quickly, they essentially built these like very big castle cities. But these castle cities are like in the middle of all these other factions. So in a way, the ratmen have inadvertently become like the shield, of other factions, because they're in the middle. And they get constantly attacked from all sides. And so the idea was, then going into the actual concepts for the models, the idea was, we want this concept of Ratman that looked at let's say, the greatness of humanity and wanted to mimic it. And so they kind of look knightly, but because they're stuck in this perpetual constant warring and sieging, everything is kind of like slightly run down. And actually, practically speaking, it ends up serving two purposes. Like, one, well, it makes for really cool models for us, but two, the fact that everything that they have is slightly like run down means that if you want to, like, if you like the evil aesthetic, for Ratman, if you want to, you can just paint them up, with brown and dirt and whatever. And the fact that everything is kind of like ruined, will give you, that, let's say, evil aesthetic. So if you want dirty rats, you can actually do it without rats, which I think is a cool side effect. And anyway, we were making the concepts. Yeah, we made the concepts and we thought they looked cool, but somewhere along the line of doing concepts, excuse me, somewhere along the line of doing the concepts, we accidentally stumbled back into making them look a little bit too evil. Um, and we actually started making the models, and the models ended up looking too evil. So, um, yeah, basically, over the last month, we went back and we redid, the Ratman. And now, wow, now they really look like what we were thinking. So, yeah, so Knightly Ratman, they all have like sort of, I think they're called a tabard. Um, and everything's kind of run down. And so we had this idea that, like, well, they're constantly fighting, so they're constantly sort of like prepared. And so they have like these little pouches where they maybe have like a couple of coins, and they have like a little their last little piece of cheese strapped to their belt, just as they're about to go into battle. And yeah, and everything's kind of like a desperate last, struggle, for survival. And then, yeah, we were looking for, what sort of assets and details can we make, what sort of shapes can we have. And so we ended up on these two shields. We thought that these were like cool. They kind of motif, the shapes follow the motif. And then lots of ideas for other assets, like, of course, a cheese wheel, because I mean, rats. A little nail file for their claws, little bells, little pouches. Yeah, lots of cool stuff. And yeah, and making sure that even like in elements like buckles and swords and stuff like that, we can sort of like, follow the theme of the rat. Interesting enough, all Ratmen will come both in male and female version. We had spoken about this already in our last stream. OPR is trying to make, sure that our models are both male and female as much as possible. And with the Ratman anatomy, it was possible. So, of course, we decided to do it. Okay, so that was the Warriors. So the Warriors. Oh yeah, I can show you. Yeah, because I was talking about the female version. So you can see here. This is still early concept art, but You can see here that there's like the male version, which looks a little bit more rough, and then the female version, which looks a little softer and cuter. And then when we made the model, we realized like, well, just changing the face wasn't enough. So we did a lot of exploration into like, well, how can we add other elements like jewelry, or other things to see, well, to make sure that they look more female. And so here at the beginning, we experiment with some braids, but then that didn't really work. Little crowns also didn't feel quite good, but these look cool. This could be like on a hero. This could be a very cool detail. And then we ended up with the idea of like, okay, let's really focus in on like earrings. So they have lots of little cool earrings that they wear. They actually have like, I don't have the concepts here, but they have like bracelets and other jewelry that they have, to kind of like, again, distinguish them from their male counterparts. They look adorable. I have to say, I have seen them and they look adorable. Okay, but what are some warriors without a hero? So in the first month of the Ratman, you're also going to get the Ratman champion. So the champion, he is not. He's a champion, so he's a little bit like more royal, let's say. So he gets like plate armor. He gets like a bigger, bulkier frame. He has like this big shoulder pads. And again, like following the theme of the faction, which okay, I kind of told you half the story for the faction, right? Like, so the Ramen are in the middle of different factions, and they're constantly under siege. And at some point, the Ratmen were almost like completely destroyed. And in that moment, a godly being came from the sky, which is called the Mother Rat. And the Mother Rat basically struck down all the enemies of the Ratman, and then sort of like vanished. This is the short version. And so the Ratmen have kind of, there's now a cult amongst the Ratmen. It's the cult of the Mother Rat, and they both. It kind of like splits Ratman society, because part of them are like, yes, of course we should honor the great goddess that saved us, and we should pray to her, and so on and so forth. But there are others that feel it's kind of like suspicious, and like now religion has sort of infiltrated their faction. So there's an interesting conflict there in the lore. But anyway, this to say that like the rats also have this element of the symbols of the Mother Rat. And so, for instance, here you can see that like she has these the hero will also come in male and female version. But there's like these ornaments. Well, here they're very rough. Unfortunately, this is an early art. But there are all these ornaments. Yeah, I can see like these hanging chains and stuff like that. But yes, the champion, much more knightly than the regular rats. Yeah, very cool. And then, well, you have a champion, and now the champion has to go into a battle. So how do you bring him to battle? And so the champion comes on a palanquin. Well, you have the regular on foot version, don't worry. But then there is this version, which is basically, yeah, it's really cool. It's basically like a bunch of rats carrying a sort of platform, with lots of details, of course, like the rat details, shields, swords, wheel of cheese, because of course you want that. And yeah, and they basically like bring the commander into battle. And yeah, here we're thinking of making it modular, so like you're gonna have a more like battle version, and then you're gonna have a more like royal parade version. And you can build whichever one you want, and you can do whatever you want with it. Yeah, this was inspired actually by the old Disney Robin Hood cartoon. When we were looking to find elements to make it, to make the faction fun and royal and not evil and not dirty and so on and so forth, we actually looked at Robin Hood as an inspiration. Yeah, and this came directly out of that. Very cool. And then yeah, prop ideas like bells. Bells is one of the themes. They have cheese wheels, stuff like that. Yeah, we're always drawing these like little extra rats. We actually have a file for them. It's called Rat Buddies, and it's basically like a bunch of like tiny 3D rats. And the idea is that we're going to scatter those around the units so that you have a cute little rat detail everywhere. So yeah, expect cute little rats on top of everything you're gonna get. Okay, so that's the palanquin. Okay, now we can look at the last thing. And the last thing, which is 5 things actually, it's the ratman weapon team. So the ratman weapon teams, yeah, we went through a lot of exploration of different ideas, different heads, different armor. Yeah, you can see like a couple little buddies. I love the one that's like holding onto the ball, the one that's running after a ball. Unfortunately, I don't know why this picture is very low res, but um, yeah, adorable. So yeah, the weapon teams, they come in 5 flavors. So you have the flamethrower team. Essentially, there's a guy in the back with like a big backpack filled with like barrels, I suppose, of like fuel. And then at the front, you have a guy with a flamethrower. Yeah, they kind of always come in teams. And then yeah, here the idea is like to have a little buddy that like lights the flame, which I thought was adorable. Then we have the heavy driller. And here the idea is that you have a guy in the back that's sort of like carrying a bag filled with like these drills, because the idea is that, like, as you drill, they kind of like break down, so you need to replace them. And then in front you can see the triple driller thing. It looks kind of thin, probably will all be thickened out for the 3D. And then the guy in the front also has this sort of like backpack that you know generates the energy for the drill. And then we have another little buddy handing over a drill bit. That's the second one. The third one, the Gatling gun. So the Gatling gun, as you can see, triple gun again, like, ready to destroy. And we thought, well, like, this is sort of like medieval tech. We cannot really have a Gatling gun with like a chain of ammo. So we said, well, what if instead of having a chain of ammo, it's kind of has like this I forget what it's called, like a funnel. There's like this little funnel that kind of goes into the weapon, and basically the guy in the back is just he has this backpack filled with pellets, and he's just like shoveling. He's continuously just shoveling them in the funnel, just trying to keep up with the speed of the gun. And then for the buddy, we thought, I don't know if this is gonna fit in the model, but we thought, wouldn't it be cute if he's at the top of the thing of the pellets, and he's kind of like making a snow angel. Yeah, let's see if we can manage. If we can, that's going to be absolutely adorable. Okay, then the fourth one is the mortar. For the mortar, actually, it took us quite some iterations to make sure we had something that was kind of working for us. And so here we have this idea that, like, if you think about it, truly, it's not actually a mortar. It's actually more of a cannon, but whatever, it's fantasy, right? And so the idea is that you have the guy in the front, like, holding this sort of like, a cannon, and then you have the guy in the back that kind of like has like a sliding backpack thing filled with balls, and he kind of like shoves them in there and lights that thing, and then they fire. And for little red buddies, probably we're gonna do one of these, like this guy like carrying a bomb, or the guy holding onto the ball, or something adorable. And then for the final one, we have the death roller. The death roller also is one of those where, like, we weren't really sure what to do here. And so we went through different iterations, and then somebody had this idea of like the bikes. I'm not sure. I remember there was a cartoon again in the 90s called like Bikers from Mice Bikes from Mars, something like that. And maybe it was inspired by that, I don't know. But yes, so the idea is that he has sort of like this bike with a lawnmower roller at the front, and he just squishes enemies, as he battles ahead. And with this, that's the Ratman. That's the Ratman release for November. Yeah, it's gonna be quite big. So we're looking at least like so the warriors come with 3 weapon options plus commands. So that's 18 models right there. Plus the champion probably comes with like 3 combined versions. Then the palanquin, that's another 2. So we're talking about 5. 20 plus the weapon seems. Yeah, we're looking at 25 to 30 models. So like it's still going to be like quite a big release for them. And then, well, I have a minute left here, so okay, I think I can stop the timer for now. All right, 1 hour. We actually kind of made it on time. But let's take a look at the last concept, which is the epic avatar of change. So, the epic avatar of change is, well, the epic version of the avatar of change. And yeah, it looks absolutely amazing. So, the theme of the lore of the change demons is actually that they're all about like arcane power and essentially like every god is sort of like about an obsession, and the obsession of the change demons is knowledge and arcane artifacts and stuff like that. And so this guy truly represents all of that. So he's filled with like books and scrolls, and he's actually casting like a beautiful magic, I don't know, zap. Yeah, we have this idea here of like the sort of like forbidden book of lore, has the symbol of the faction, has lots of like spells, coming out of it. Uh, cool head. Yeah, they always have like these triple eyes design. So that's pretty cool. Ornaments everywhere. I mean, intricate armor. Um, yeah, I mean, uh, just a cool guy. Yeah, special spear. Um, yeah, this is gonna be cool. This is gonna be very cool. Yeah. All right, so we are 1 hour in. We have seen everything that's coming in October. We have seen everything that's coming in November. So we are now entering the question and answers Q and A phase. So I'm gonna give you guys a minute. Whatever questions you have, I have not been reading the chat during the stream. So whatever questions you have, I guess post them, and I will try to answer those um, to the best of my ability. And we have about 30 minutes time. Wait, what do I? Okay, we have about 30 minutes time. So yeah, it's actually not bad. Okay, let me see. I'm looking forward to some halflings. Not likely that we're doing halflings anytime soon. Is merchandise in progress? Merchandise is in progress. I actually just saw a little update about it yesterday, a couple days ago. So I think the way that it's going to work is essentially we're going to do a staggered rollout. Um, Ideally, we want to release. We want to start with the release of a basic T-shirt that just has like the logo. But we're trying to see if there's like some cool ways that we can like enhance the logo. We would like to have an additional T-shirt that's just sort of like the logo, but also some sort of slogan that that you can kind of use to make a statement, because we know that there's like different people have different needs from their merch and their apparel. Yeah, right now, by the way, we're only thinking about um, t-shirts for now. And we know that different people have different needs, and some people just want to represent. Some people want to have a T-shirt to run an event, for example, but some people want to have a T-shirt that like to kind of make a point and like get into a conversation and like or make a statement. And so we're trying to find a nice catchphrase that we can use that sort of summarizes OPR and what it means to be part of the OPR experience and play OPR games and what makes it cool and maybe get you into like a cool conversation about it. So it's in progress. We also want to make some, at least for the beginning, ideally one T-shirt featuring, let's say, Grimdark Future, and one featuring, let's say, Age of Fantasy. But yes, probably it's going to be like a staggered thing. Like we're going to start with the more basic ones that like everybody wants, and then we're going to release others as they come. ETA, as always, when it's ready. Okay, halfling though. What will be the release order of the new games? Oof. Honestly, it really depends on just how they are. FTL, FTL, we are currently releasing 2 armies per month on Patreon for the beta. We are currently, I think, on the 3rd month, so we've released 6 armies, and there is a total of 16. So it could take up to another. Wait, am I being dumb? another 5 months. So it could be that it's in beta until my god, wait, October, November, December, until February. So I would say March-ish. You could imagine that it could come out for everyone. Cell sorts, unfortunately, I have had no time to work on cell sorts. Slowly, I'm able to get back into doing more stuff. I found a way to like free my schedule. But right now, the focus has been for me to finalize the mission packs because we are almost at the end of the, I don't know, let's call it season 1 of the mission packs. And those are all going to be packaged and sold on Wargame Vault for people that missed out. And now we're basically making sure that we have the second mission packs ready, so that the stream of content can continue without issues. And then eventually we're going to make a third set, and so on and so forth. But yeah, so Cell Sorts has been kind of a hold because of that. Same thing with Commander and Generals. But I would expect that once Cell Sorts is the one that concerns me the most, because it's so different from the rest. But Commander and Generals, I would assume that once the ball gets rolling on that, once a couple of like core mechanical questions, let's say, have been solved, that's going to be released fairly quickly. And then it's just a matter of like making sure it has a web app, and Army Forge integration, and then also making sure that it has like a more content that we can give you, like an advanced rulebook or campaign rules, or not campaign rules, sorry, narrative campaigns, or something like that. There's already some posted questions on the Discord. Where? Please don't ask me questions all over the place. I don't know where I can find them. Please post your questions here. Any chance of getting Gek handlers as an option for regular geckos? I'm not sure. Basically, geckos with spears. There are no plans for geckos with spears. For Starhost. Loving 2.50. It was nice to see Wizards get a balance pass. Any other balance pass on the horizon? Yes. I'm basically collecting a huge list of balance things that are going to come for V2.50, but we are currently working on some critical web app and Army Forge stuff. And because of that, those changes are essentially on hold. But you can expect, in terms of balance, I suppose the biggest core balance change are going to be a change to how poison works. There might be, I'm not sure, there might be a change to how impact works. There might be a change to coherency, just small changes there. The bigger changes will probably be like there are going to be some competitive rule changes, essentially making sure that skirmish competitive games are a little bit more balanced in terms of like how many models you can bring, and then also all of the competitive games having some balance as to what's the most expensive model you can bring to a game. So because we kind of want to have a thing where we tell you like, look, you don't have to play with competitive rules, of course, but if you're playing with competitive rules, bringing a 750 point Titan to a 1,000 point game, no. Outside of that, there's lots of like smaller changes to different factions. But yeah, there are too many to get into right now. But yes, Balance Pass is coming as soon as possible. Goblins or Sky City Dwarves? Not sure what the question is. How many waves does it usually take for a faction to be complete? It really depends. So with the Soul Demons, with the Havoc Demons, we kind of like speed ran through it. And so each faction was released in 2 waves, which is not normal. A regular faction, like a big faction, like the Ratman, for example, which is a big faction, it has like 30 units or something like that. You can expect it to be released in like 5 months, 6 months, something like that. Whereas like a smaller faction could come out in 3 months, 4 months. Yeah. Can you see any of your factions having a pirate theme? Um, yes. So in the lore for Age of Fantasy, well, actually, Grimdark Future as well. The Dark Elves are a pirate faction. Now, you know, expect it to be a pirate faction within the framework of them being elves. Don't expect it to be, um, a literal, just like Pirates of the Caribbean, whatever faction. But yes, there could be factions of the pirate theme. For Battle Prime Havoc Brothers, will you eventually be doing the different detachments? Do you mean models? I assume you're meaning models. Um, huh. It's unclear. So ideally, because they have so many different iterations, so ideally what I would want to do is make our Battle Brother and Prime Brother models in such a way that, well, I suppose Havoc Brother models as well, that you have a base model and then you can essentially make it modular with bits, so that you can have you buy the regular pack of Battle Brothers and then you buy the pack of bits to make them into Wolf Brothers, and now you combine the two and there you go. Now you have your Wolf Brothers. But from a technical perspective, yeah, it's kind of complex because we're trying to make great looking models, right? We want to make high quality, great looking models, which also means good poses and everything working well and so on and so forth. And modular bits that change the silhouette of the model get in the way of something like that, and so there has to be a balance that we have to find. Because imagine, just to give an example, so imagine you have a Battle Brother, and the Battle Brother has a shoulder pad, right? And now you're going to put him in a pose where, I don't know, he holds the sword like this, and now what's happening is that the shoulder pad is actually very, very slightly clipping into the chest piece, or maybe even into the helmet, just very slightly, so that it's better for printing and so that you can hold the pose, and it looks really good. But the moment it slightly clips, um, you can't make that piece removable. So now, how do you solve it? So either you're going to have to kind of like move the arm and make a very unnatural pose that looks bad. We don't want models that look bad. Or you're going to have to make sure that all of your poses can function with like a removable piece, but that also means that now you're highly limited in what you do. Um, yeah, changing chess pieces, stuff like that. Ugh, it's complicated. We would like to do it, of course, because we want to give you guys what we want to give you what you want. Cool models, but it's complicated. Maybe a t-shirt with some artwork in place of white in the logo. Maybe, yeah. Any teasers in terms of the direction theme for the upcoming Battle Sister release? So we have shown. I don't want to show it off here because this is like a public thing, but we had shown it off on Patreon. So the Battle Sisters, their theme is, I mean, it's interesting. Out of all the factions in our games, they're actually the only one that sort of has a theme that is closer to something made by Games Workshop, in that like they have a very their theme is again like nuns. It's not really gothic. It's kind of like a more baroque theme, but it is a very because the lore of their faction essentially revolves around this young woman that basically was fighting as part of like the rebellion, when humanity left the Ceres sector, and she basically like created this whole she basically helped a huge part of like humanity survive. And so she was kind of like crowned as the god queen, although that's not what she wanted, and eventually like she sacrificed herself and whatever. And so the Battle Sisters are all about essentially like idolizing and venerating this human woman that was sort of like elevated to status of a god. And so with that in mind, we want to make sure that the theme is reflected in the model, so they are going to have a more religious theme. But anyway, different from Games Workshop. What about volunteers program? Another thing we want to do, still in the works. Honestly, I have no news on that. To copy a question from Discord, what 2D minis are planned for the next months? For the 2D minis, except for Alien Hives, because they're going to go through a rework, you can expect them to follow the exact same order as the 3D minis. So I think next up are probably going to be uh, duchies of no saurians. Yeah, yeah. Next up are going to be saurians and hmm. Hold that thought. I can answer that. The next two are going to be saurians and jackals. So yeah, yeah, that's what you can expect. Okay. Are volcanic dwarves OP or am I just bad? I genuinely don't think there is any faction that right now is like uh, factually OP. I'm not saying that you're bad. I'm not saying that you're bad, but whoever you're playing against might be coming up with like a great list and a great strategy to fight you on whatever environment you have and whatever mission you have. It's very complex, right? Like I don't know what list you have. I don't know what list they have. I don't know what models they're combing. I don't know what the table looks like. I don't know what mission you're playing. I don't know. I don't know. What I can tell you is baseline. No, volcanic dwarves are not OP. Um, any updates on the volunteer program? Like I just said, no. Will the web app allow us to input the design? Yes. So that's part of the big works that we're doing. Is one of the big things that we need to complete in order to be able to come out of beta is the completion of the army creator for the web app. So the idea is that basically one day, if you're a patron, you're going to be able to log into the web app and you're going to be able to create an army from scratch. It will automatically calculate all the costs. It will automatically generate the PDF and it will automatically generate an entry in the Army Forge. So you can have your custom army made for whatever you want, whatever models you want. It can be about something silly. It can be about soda cans. And it will be in the Army Forge. And you will be able to make you'll be able to use the Army Forge to create your list and play with soda cans. If you want to. Does Wargame Vault offer multilingual purchase files? No, there is no such thing, and we do not have the capacity to do translations. Will Mummified and Dead Robot Legions get any more paper model released after October? Hold on. I think I think both sets are a total of 5. So I think we're entering the release of set 4 for robots and 3 for undead, something like that. So you can expect 1 or 2 more releases, and then, like I said before, we're going into what was it, saurians and jackals. Impact is overpowered in my opinion. Well, I don't want to say that Impact is overpowered necessarily, but it is very reliable, and because it's so reliable, it does feel a little. Are the rats like beastmen? Lore wise, do they have shared origins? No, not at all. Since the other demons are collectors of sort, what do lust demons seek? What do they lust for? They lust for power. That's essentially their thing. The lust demons lust for power. They lust for conquest. I mean, I don't want to go into it too much right now, but basically, um, how do I go into this without going into this? Okay, I don't want to spoil things. Let's say they lust for power. They lust for perfection. Truly, at its core, they lust for perfection. All I can spoil now is the Havoc gods are dying, and that has consequences. And one of them is this. Okay. Can we get the Rat Buddies as separate mini releases at some point in the future? No, the Rat Buddies will always be part of whatever unit they're part of. Does the Lust Chariot have wheels? Does it float? Or is it more like a sled? It's like a sled. How much time do you invest in design and modeling of each model? Do you get to reuse a lot of elements amongst models in the faction? Um, it really depends. So, sometimes you're talking about a model which is okay. The thing that takes the most time, for example, is something like making the plague warriors, because the plague warriors, you're making the anatomy of the plague warrior, which is already very complex, and then you're making, I think they have 6 weapon options, so you're having to make 6 weapons. Then you have to make the banner, you have to make the standard, sorry, you have to make the banner, you have to make the musical instrument, you have to make the alternative weapon and alternative head for the sergeant, and then you have to make 32 no, well, you're making 5 poses plus 3, so you're making 8 poses, and you have to make sure that 5 poses um, can fit all 6 weapon types and don't clash, and then you have to do the cuts for all of those. So making a unit like that can take 2 weeks, 3 weeks sometimes even. Generally speaking, depending on the unit, it takes about a week to a week and a half to make a unit, something like that. So you can imagine that that's how much time we invest in that. But how much time do we invest in the concepting? I think that's the more important part, because we're actually right now we're going through um, a rework of all of our pipeline, and we want to spend more and more time in the concept phase, because we basically, the bigger the team gets and the more complex our designs get, the more we realize that the concept phase is extremely important, because a mistake that you make in the concept phase costs you a ton of time in the sculpting phase, and can cost you a lot of time then, or well, a lot of money truly, in the supports phase. So um, yeah, how much time do we invest per unit? Let's say about a week, week and a half, in sculpting, and then per concept, it's difficult to measure because it happens at different stages. Um, okay, ba-ba-ba-ba-bum. Mm-mm-mm-mm. Ba-ba-ba-ba. Let's see. Mm-mm-mm-mm. Will there be undead minis, not the mummy ones? Eventually, yes. So the the oh, sorry, I spaced out for a second. We will, every faction that has an army book, you can expect to get models for. Now, when, that is the question. So the question is not will there be undead minis. The question is when will there be undead minis. And the answer is I have no idea. When it's ready, as always. What problem did you have with the terrain making? It's a bit complicated, but essentially, hmm, um, how can I put this in the best way possible? Um, Essentially, the way we were making the terrain before wasn't working out. It was the terrain was starting to become more and more complex. And we also wanted to stick closer to the concept art, because what happened was at the beginning our concept art was kind of more basic, and so the terrain, the concept art for the terrain was more basic, and so when we were sculpting the terrain, there was a lot of, let's say, parts that you were kind of making up, and we were kind of just filling the gaps. And then as we started investing more in our concept art, the designs became more intricate, and so the method that we were using before, which was kind of like, let's say, free flow, wasn't really working. We needed to be more precise, and we needed to be more following the concepts better. And then also we learned a lot of things about like printability and supporting, and people that print with FDM, and all these type of things. And so it became um, the demands of the quality demands of the terrain that we had became too much for the method that we were using. um, and so essentially we had to like scrap everything that we were doing and start from scratch. And we have a new method that we're using now, and it's working out. Um, it's working out well, but it's slow. We're trying to really get into gears. We think that once the new method is in place, we'll be back on track, as you can expect, and you can expect the terrain to come in a steady pace. Any date for Grimdark Future RPG? No, we have never announced a Grimdark Future RPG, and there is no plans for it. Sure, I would love to make it in the future, but in order to make an RPG, you need the setting, and we have the setting, but we haven't shared the setting. So we cannot make a Grimdark Future RPG without the Grimdark Future setting being fully revealed. Any plans for different ships for FTL, like other ship designs for Squad and so on? Yes. So with Grimdark Future FTL being a thing, we're also going to be working on new ships and ship designs. So there will be. Whoops, sorry. Yes. Okay. So the idea is basically like every faction. Right now, FTL essentially has like 6 generic factions plus the standard generic faction, and they each come like the package of 3D models comes with like 4 ships, which it's fine. Like 3 ships in a squadron, it's just fine. But eh. What we want to do is so the Grimdark Future FTL is gonna have I think 16. Well, with the Star Host now 17 factions, and for each faction we want to make sure that we have all the ship types covered. So that's 6 ship types, plus the 3 ship types from the generic thing. So that's 9 ship types, and then the 3 squadrons that they have plus the 3 squadrons. So it's 9 ship types and 6 squadron types, and we want them to be modular as well. So it's a big project. Are different ships for FTL coming? Yes, they will have nothing to do with what you're getting now. You will be getting more models with more customizability that are going to be in theme with the faction. It's going to be great, but it takes time for us to get there. So right now, one thing that we definitely learned with the demons push is that there is only so much we can do at one time without going crazy. So we have slowly, like we have put that on hold, and we're gonna slowly get back into that. But that will require like a big planning phase on first, like understanding, well, how do we even make these new ships, and then like what are the technical requirements, and how do we make them modular without screwing things up. And so yeah, that's the yes, there are plans for ships in the future. I hadn't realized how much work goes into each model. Oh, the amount of work that goes into each model is insane. Like from the concept phase, like you have to understand, we have this whole phase where we first just explore what is a faction even going to be like what is the idea even behind a faction, and then we kind of have like to do this overview where we essentially go through like all the units, and then you're not just going through all the units, right? You're going through like, what are all the units like, what are their symbols like, what are their themes like, what are their weapons like, what is their technology like, what is their armor like, what is their details like, what are their and you're basically like, you have this enormous, let's say, checklist of things to do. And then for each individual unit you have to do every part of it. You have to do like, well, how is the anatomy, how is the armor, how are the details that they have, which weapons do they have, how does each individual pose look like, and so on and so forth. And so a ton of work goes into the concept. And once the concept is done, then it goes into sculpting. And now you're looking at somebody that has to, starting from nothing, right, has to make an anatomy, and then has to make all of the armor pieces, and then has to make all the details, and has to make all the weapons. And throughout this process also has to solve a bunch of problems, because they have to solve scale problems, like what works at the scale, what is the right size, what is not the right size, what will print well, what will break, how are we going to do the cuts, how are we going to make sure that this is modular. A ton of work goes into not just that. And then once that is done, like, and we have the 3D model, then now it goes to multiple teams, because it's like you need people to do the renders. So now it's again, it's like for each individual model, it's like, well, what base do they go on, what's the light going to be like, what's the angle we're going to take the picture from, and how are we going to do render. And then sometimes it's like, well, the miniature doesn't look good from this angle, or maybe the light needs to be different. And then you have all of this rendering part, and then you have all of the part of like doing the supports, because every individual miniature has to be supported, and not only supported, not only does the combined version need to be supported, the pieces have to be supported, because we provide all of the models in combined and in pieces, and we provide you with the basic STLs, we provide you with the supported STLs, we provide you with the supported um, Leechy files. Like I think what we do, like the models we do, are great. I love it. And when you just look at it, you're like, well, it's a cute little toy or whatever. But the amount of work from this random idea in my head to you getting the miniature in your hand is, yeah, it's enormous. And that's why we're like such a big team, and have to work so hard, and yeah. Um, bu-bu-bu-bu-bum. Mm-mm-mm-mm. When can we expect Star Host Legendary model? You know what? I think I have revealed this before, and if I haven't, well, screw it. I will let you know. So the Star Host Legendary, there's going to be a Star Host Legend, and there is going to be a Star Host loyalty reward. I think the Star Host, okay, the Star Host Legendary is coming out in February. Well, if everything goes according to plan, it's coming out in February. What else? We're about to hit. Yeah, we're hitting now the 1.5 hour mark. Let me see if there's a couple of questions I can answer more. When working on a new faction or any sort of new rule set, do you determine points based on some sort of formula? Yes. There's a point calculator. I don't know how much you know. I don't know if you're a patron, but all of the factions are made using a point calculator. Yeah, that essentially, like, it's a formula that makes sure that everything kind of like is balanced in the same way. Of all the OPR games, which is your favorite to play? I think I answered this in another stream as well. I think out of all of them, I mean, I do enjoy all games. I think probably Age of Fantasy Regiments maybe is the one that like just always hits the mark for me. I think there was something about the regimental movements and the fact that you have the side facing and the rear charges and all that stuff. And also, like, I'm just a sucker for. I love sci-fi, but I think I'm just a sucker for the fantasy aspect of having so much melee combat, which means, for me at least, everything becomes more chess-like. I think one of the big difference between sci-fi and fantasy is that in fantasy, when you want to destroy another unit, you have to charge, right? So you have to move across the field and you have to get there and destroy them, and then you are where they were. So every time you make an attack, you're basically also putting yourself at a risk. Whereas in sci-fi, you can just stand in place and shoot in every direction, and you don't have to actually take a risk to attack a unit. And so I think in that sense, it becomes a little bit less tactical, and I enjoy the tactical part more. Um, will the generic FTL game be moved to one-off games? The generic FTL game will be removed, I think. It will just be gone, because the new FTL is essentially, I mean, it's the same game, just that the factions are going to be different. So there really is no reason to keep the generic factions. Yeah. Um, Uh-huh. Okay. Oof. Dog bumped my table hard and demon flew 2.5 feet to the floor. I credits. All right. Sorry to hear that. Okay. All right. So, all right. I think this is it. I don't think. I don't think there's any questions here anymore that I need to really answer right now. Stream went on for an hour and a half. Very good. This is the target. Yeah, I feel like maybe I kind of rushed a bit at the beginning, but with 3 factions, I think I kind of have to. I suppose once we go back to having 2 factions per month, I will have, instead of having like 10 minutes per faction, I will have 15 minutes per faction. So it will give me a bit more time to give you guys some more details about, like, how do we create our stuff, and what is cool about each miniature. As always, there is a lot there is a lot of stuff that we're working on in the background that you guys still haven't seen. So um yeah, I mean the hype is real. There's a lot of amazing stuff coming. I can't wait to reveal it. Lore is gonna come out. Merch is coming. A new website is coming. There's gonna be a new wiki that's coming. There's going to be the volunteer program that's coming. We're creating like these sort of like um, we're creating these sort of like recruitment kits and demo packs, and we're also creating like these sort of like tournament documents and these tournament packages as well for like prizes, and like a lot of stuff is coming. Yeah, I can't wait to reveal it to you guys. And yeah, and I hope you guys are as excited about that as I am. Yeah. All right. Thank everyone for coming to the stream. The next stream, I suppose, is going to be. So usually it's the last Thursday of the month. So 27th of October. I suppose that's when it's going to be. All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.